worked on a washing floor. Farther down, the water activated a sweep, which rotated awkwardly round and round, helping to separate the ore. A train of mules with panniers were being driven up the opposite slope of the valley. At the foot of the valley, with a small lawn and a few bushes only separating it from all the industry, was a low granite-built house, part slate roof, part thatch, bigger and grander than a farmhouse, with its outbuildings, its squat chimneys, its straggling wing and its mullioned windows, yet hardly of the distinction to be called a gentleman's residence. Behind the house the land rose again in a ploughed field running up to a headland. Beyond scrubland to the right was a beach with a scarf of salty sea.
"'Twasn't no lie,"
said Drake.
"Reckon you're right. It looked different from when I came afore."
"This work is all new."
"Yes, I reckon. Nan fan said it had not been started more'n 2 year."
Drake ran a hand through his shock of black hair.
"'Tis a handsome house, though not near so great as Tahiti. The Poldarks is small gentry, not big."
"Big enough for we," said Drake with a nervous laugh.
"All men are alike in the sight of the eternal Jehovah," said Sam.
"Maybe so, but it isn't Jehovah we got to deal with."
"No, brother, but all people are set at liberty by the blood of Christ."
They went on and recrossed the stream and came up to the house. Disturbed, some seagulls blew up from the lawn like white clothes flapping in the wind. The two young men were saved the necessity of knocking because the front door opened, and a small, plump, brown-haired, middle-aged woman came out carrying a basket. When she saw them, she stopped and rubbed her free hand down her apron.
"Yes?" "If ye please, ma'am," said Sam, "we'd like to see your mistress."
"Just tell her 2 friends has called."
"Friends?"
Jane Gimlet eyed them and hesitated, but she was not sufficiently the well-trained servant to stare them down.
"Wait here,"
she said, and turned back into the house. She found her mistress in the kitchen, bathing one of Jeremy's knees, where he had scuffed it climbing a wall. A large, hairy dog of anonymous breed lay at her feet.
"There's 2 young men at the door, ma'am, want to see ye. Miners or the like, I'd say."
"Miners? From our mine?"
"Nay, strangers from a distance, I'd say."
Demelza looped up a curl of hair and straightened. "Stay there, my handsome," she said to Jeremy, and walked along the passage to the front door, frowning in the brighter light. At first, she did not recognize either of them.
"We came to see ye, sister,"
said Sam.
"'Tis 6 years since we met. Do you recall me? I'm Sam, the second one. I mind you well. This is Drake, the youngest. He were 7 when you left home."
"Judas,"
said Demelza.
"how you've both grown."
Ross had been up at Wheel Grace with Captain Henshaw and the 2 engineers who had built the engine. They had been over to check a fault which had developed in the pump rod, and the engine had been stopped for half a day until they came, so the opportunity had been taken to carry out the monthly cleaning of the boiler. It was in a thoughtful but cheerful mood that Ross started back to the house. The mine, he thought, had now reached the limit of its foreseeable expansion. It employed 30 tributers, 25 tutmen, 6 binders and timbermen, and about 40 workers of one sort and another above ground. The engine was now working at near its comfortable capacity, and the water it pumped up from 60 fathoms was ingeniously channeled into a wooden trough, which worked a small water wheel at surface, which itself worked a secondary and much smaller pump. The water then flowed down a 10-fathom adit until it worked a second water wheel, built 60 feet below the level of the first wheel and about 30 feet below the level of the sloping ground, where it ran on down the adit to come out at the washing floor, built just above Demelzas' garden. A fair amount of the mined ore was still sent to be crushed and washed at the tin stamps of Saul Coombe, for there was not enough room for more stamps in this valley without destroying it as a place to live. Further extension of the mine looked uneconomic. To build an